Welcome back to Ren Fair. I'm Jamie.
And this is Kelly. We're back.
And we're going to get started with what do you have for us today, Kelly?
We're going to talk about a little bit of astrology and a little bit of mythology.
Fun.
So, specifically, the constellations that our zodiac signs are attached to on one side, and then the stories of how they got there or how they came to be on the mythology side.
Okay, fun. I'm
So
ready.
yeah, it's, as we know, the astrological signs, like we usually think about them to, of course, this constellation in the sky. I have Aquarius tattooed on my forearm, or the planet. So, Libra is Venus ruled, a Aquarius is Saturn or Uranus ruled, that kind of stuff. And in Hellenistic astrology, we typically focus on those planets themselves and use the archetypes of the gods that rule them as the way to kind of understand the basic meaning of the zodiac. And that's obviously because we spend the most time tracking the planets in astrology in terms of like how to predict the weather and the seasons and all of that kind of divination that astrology is used for, but not so much the constellations. Like they're there and they're part of it, but we don't really talk about them as much. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really know any of these stories until I did research for this.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a little of an overlooked area.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the constellations themselves, obviously we have 12 zodiac signs. And so there are 12 constellations that we kind of connect them to. But in actual real life, there's 13 constellations on this path that the sun is on, which is called the ecliptic. So the reason that they're part of this system is because they're on that path.
Okay.
If you've ever seen the headlines that are like, everything you know about your zodiac is not real, there's this other constellation and this other sign that comes between Sagittarius and Capricorn, and like you're supposed to be like the next sign over or whatever.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
like,
Okay.
all of this like astrology isn't real because like, what about this kind of thing?
I've never seen those, but I'm curious to know
Really?
more. Yeah.
So I don't quite know why that one is not included. I'll be honest with you. It's just simply not. Never was. So we just say
What
what the
is
tradition
it?
is.
Am I skipping ahead if I
It's
ask?
like it's Ophiuchus.
Okay.
And so it's just a 13th.
Never heard of her.
Yeah. Constellation on that path. And then another thing to note about this alignment with our zodiac signs is like the original thinking was when that constellation is in the sky, the sun passes over it, and that's how you get the connection. But the earth moves, it has an axis, the alignment changes. So they're actually no longer aligned with what's in the sky. Like the sun doesn't necessarily pass through that particular constellation during
Interesting.
that exact same season anymore, which is another argument like people use against astrology.
Right. Like it should
But I
change,
mean,
essentially.
right. And there's other like sidereal astrology, I think, is another type that I don't know much about that gets into that a little bit, that tries to shift and all that kind of stuff. But 13 doesn't allow you to cleanly break up the circle that it like travels within and that you use for like an astrological chart. So it was excluded.
Okay.
So the corresponding mythology, I'm just going to go over 6 stories today. But, the idea is that with each constellation, there's a mythological story attached to it to kind of explain how and why it got there. Just kind of the background story, as, the Greeks and Roman like to do in terms of like making sense of their world. But to give an overview of kind of what stories we'll end up telling through this episode and the next. We have, starting from the beginning, Aries, which is the ram. And this covers the story of the golden ram, who is a son of Poseidon, who rescues these 2 kids and is later kind of sacrificed. Then we have Taurus, which is the bull, and it covers a story of Zeus, who turns himself into a bull to seduce the princess Europa, which Europe is named after. The Gemini, which is the twins. And so naturally, it's a story about twins who kind of overcame a lot of challenges together and it ended up kind of keeping them together in this interesting way in the sky. Cancer, the crab, which is the story of a crab that's sent by Hera to distract Hercules during his fight with Hydra. And then similarly, the lion, referring to the Nemenian lion who was slain by Hercules, also in his, um, you know,
Okay.
parade of good deeds. So that's the first six we'll cover today. But to touch on the other group we'll talk about next time, Virgo, the maiden, it's frequently associated with either Astraea, the goddess of justice, or Demeter, representing purity and the harvest. The scales of Libra are often associated with the scales of justice held either by Themis or Astraea. Scorpio is the scorpion, which was a creature sent to fight and kill the hunter Orion, which, as we know, is another prominent constellation that we often
Hmm.
hear about. The centaur from Sagittarius, often referring to Chiron, who was a wise healer and teacher of heroes. Capricorn, the sea goat, which is associated with Pan, who turns himself into a goat-fish hybrid to escape the monster Typhon.
I didn't know it was
And
like a sea goat symbol. I've
uh-huh,
never heard that. Okay, that's
yeah.
fun.
So they say they usually like goat leads, but yeah, technically it has a fishtail.
Interesting. Okay, that's fun.
Aquarius, the water bearer, who refers to Ganymede. I'll get the real pronunciation next episode. A Trojan prince abducted by Zeus, and he's like destined to be the cupbearer to the gods. And then Pisces, the fish, which represents Aphrodite and Eros, who transform into fish to escape the monster Typhon again.
Is there any reason we're doing this for six today? Like, is there any different classification or like order between the two, or
The
is just ones that
order.
kind of yeah.
Yeah, so the zodiac starts with Aries, so that's just where they start, and really energetically in terms of if you look at it as kind of a journey, like Aries is very much like the
Okay.
baby and like kind of the one that kind of makes like brash decisions and just kind of, doesn't have like necessarily use context to be careful,
Okay.
kind of like babies.
Nice. Yeah.
Cool. So let's get into it and tell some fun little stories. It's not going to be super academic. I'm gossiping here. And please forgive me for any mispronunciations because it's a lot of Greek and Roman terms.
Yeah.
So, starting with Aries the ram, the story starts with Poseidon falling for some woman and abducting her so he can force himself on her as he tends to do. Shout out to Medusa. Um, so he, falls in love with this princess Theophane and takes her to a remote island. And obviously, men typically come to court her. And so when men arrive on the island, Poseidon turns himself and her into sheep. So he becomes a ram, she becomes a ewe to avoid ever being found. And so eventually he takes care of all of these suitors who come to the island and he has her to himself and kind of has his way with her while they're still in animal form, which is like a turning into animals to seduce people is like apparently a trait of the gods. And we'll talk about it later. Like there's more stories to come
Interesting.
with that
You know,
thing.
I feel like my brain has the little like side eye emoji right now.
Yeah. Like, what are you guys doing?
Okay.
So anyway, obviously they have to have an animal offspring. So what comes from this mortal and god union is a golden winged ram who can talk to people. And so that is the golden ram that we often hear about when we hear the stories of the golden fleece, like on, Percy Jackson. That's kind of like a big part of the first story there, but obviously in all of the other kind of mythological stories around it.
Interesting.
So this is the ram who produces the golden fleece. So meanwhile, in a place called Boa, the king is abandoning his first wife, who is a cloud nymph named Nephil, for a woman named Ino. Or Ino, maybe it's Ino. So, as part of this divorce that transpires, Nephil is supposed to leave her children behind, a son and a daughter, and they have to stay with the new stepmom, who really
Mm,
hates them and wants them dead because particularly the son, because she wants her son to be the heir to the throne.
right.
So she comes up with this scheme to bribe her messengers to, you know, hire an oracle to deliver a false prophecy, essentially. And that basically says that there's a drought that is plaguing the kingdom. And if we want to get rid of it, you have to sacrifice the son named Phrixus. Phrixus, I
Sounds
guess.
right to me.
Sure. Obviously, Phil is pissed about this. And so she calls upon the Golden Ram for help. The Golden Ram comes and swoops in and picks the son and the daughter up. The daughter's name is Hele, Helle. And his mission is to fly them as far away from as possible.
So the son that they had is still, these are different people. This is not their son
Hmm.
that's the ram. Okay, okay. I was like,
It's Poseidon.
right,
Yeah.
because yeah. Okay, all right. I'm with
Yeah. We kind of pivoted fast into another family
I got it.
to
I'm
give you the
on the same
backstory.
page. Okay.
So he picks up the two kids. They're flying. They're kind of gripping his fur and everything, but the girl loses her grip mid-flight. She got tired and falls into a part of the Black Sea. And so where she falls is eventually known as Hellespont, which means, gosh, Helen's Sea, I think. Hellas Sea.
Okay.
And the current name is called the Dardanelles now.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay. So that's kind of another term for it based on this
Okay.
legend. So the golden ram and the sun make their way to their destination. And for some reason, and we don't exactly know why, the golden ram asks him to sacrifice himself, the golden ram, to honor Poseidon. And I wonder if he was just being a nice guy and being like, maybe if you kill me, the rain will come back or something. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
Poseidon has anything to do with the drought, but obviously he owns the sea and could make storms happen, I
Right, right.
imagine. So that's going to be my theory on like why he asks to be sacrificed. So he follows suit. He comes to own the Golden Fleece, and we see that come back around in a story later on. But Poseidon is so honored by the sacrifice of the Golden Ram and the fact that it's his son. So, like, he should be honoring
Right.
him. So, he transfers him into the constellation we know as Aries. So, he puts him up in the sky as part of the way to honor him.
Oh,
So, yeah, very cute.
that is cute.
They're all
Sad.
kind of a little bit dark and dramatic, actually, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
it
expect anything
isn't all
else.
mythology, yeah.
Right.
Um, so we can make some stretches about how this could represent Aries, and I'm going to, but I think as you can see, like, the way we talk about Mars owning Aries in terms of, like, this spark of energy, taking things head on like a ram does, all of that makes a lot more sense when we look at it through the lens of Mars than maybe this story. But
Mm,
there are a couple of things, like if you wanted to try to draw a line, you could. So Aries are often quick to defend those in need or those less fortunate. As an Aries moon, I don't really get in fights unless it's like a close family that I'm like annoyed with. But like as a kid, I never got in fights for myself, but I would get into arguments on behalf of my friend. Like any like
right.
high school conflict I had, it was because I was trying to stand up for somebody else. So that's kind of like an Aries trait. They're also just kind of eager to act. And so you could say that like maybe he was rushing too much and going too fast and the girl didn't get a tight enough grip or something. So things like that. Again, it's a stretch. But I think the quick to defend part and really like looking out for those less fortunate is a strong Aries trait that you could kind of pull from this. So next we have Taurus for dear Taurus friend Jamie.
Moi.
Okay. So we know that Taurus is the bull, and this one has to do with Zeus in a kind of similar way, but a little bit different to Poseidon's approach to falling in love with a woman and having her as his
Okay.
lover. So Europa is a princess of Phoenicia. She's the daughter of King Agenor, ruler of the city Tyre or Tyre. Um, her grandfather on her father's side was Poseidon. So she's already got something like a little
Okay.
special to her running in her
Yeah.
veins. So I don't know what that means. Like if he's a demigod, would she be a quarter god?
Yeah, so obviously, like, a descendant of somebody other than the ram, like,
Yeah,
not the ram's child, some other, like, line of
right,
Poseidon.
right. And maybe it was a
Okay,
human.
interesting. Maybe.
So yeah, man, they're so incestuous here.
Maybe she's, like, part ram, which was why I'm assuming Zeus turns into a bull to, like, seduce her. I don't know, I'm sure we're getting to
Not
it, but maybe
really.
that's
Yeah.
oh, okay,
I
never
think
mind
she's
then.
just human.
I was just trying to
He
draw a
does turn
connection
into a
there.
bull to seduce her, but that's not why.
Okay.
So Zeus is enamored with her and he wants her to be his, but he takes a little bit different of a path than Poseidon, who like takes her first and then turns them into animals. So Zeus wants to like go undercover and like make a slow and steady plan, slightly methodical, slightly Taurus like some may say.
Okay.
Um so he becomes the most beautiful bull that has ever existed. Like glowing in the sun, like, he's white
This is
and
wild.
just, like, the most
He
gorgeous
has gold
bull that you've ever
horseshoes, like,
seen.
it's
Yeah,
like
basically, and so Europa's dad has a herd of cows and bulls, so he just goes and, like, mingles in with all the other cows. He doesn't blend in very well, obviously, because he's stunning, but he's,
Right,
like,
of
trying to
course.
go undercover here. So Europa's out with her attendants, and they're gathering flowers nearby, and the bull just kind of like strolls up to her calmly. And she is startled at first because it's a bull. But then she
Sure.
realized like how beautiful and docile it is. And so she starts putting flowers on him. And like he's being really patient and like building her trust up. And so she eventually climbs onto his back. And as soon as she climbs onto his back, he is out of there. He's swimming in the sea, taking her far away. So this is like his version of
So he's
abduction. He asked
kidnapping
for
her.
consent
Okay,
first,
alright.
by getting her on his back.
Kind of. Yeah.
Not really. Assuming consent, guys. That's
Right,
assuming.
right. Yes.
So they travel all the way to Crete, and once they get there, he kind of drops his disguise and reveals himself to her, and they make love and end up having 3 sons. So obviously, as sons of Zeus, they end up doing some pretty big things. So there's Minos, who becomes the ruler of Crete. Rhadamanthus, who rules the Cyclades, and then
I don't know either.
Sarpedon, who rules Lycia, Lycia. And
Okay,
actually, 2 of them end up becoming like the judges of the dead at the underworld, but that's later.
okay. I think is it Lycia?
Yeah,
Lycea,
yeah,
you
it
said? Yeah, I
is.
think it's Lycia. I don't know about the other ones, though.
So they have these 3 sons and, a great life, I guess, on Crete. And he also showers her with gifts a lot. So he gives her a bronze automation that is like her personal bodyguard, Talos.
Like a
Um,
robot,
I
basically?
don't know if it's a robot or like an animated bronze statue, basically.
Right, right.
You
Yeah, okay.
know, like in Harry
Yeah,
Potter when they
like
get the
3CPO.
statues to move.
It's
Yeah.
gold. Yeah.
A dog that can never fail to catch its prey is the other thing that he gives her. So very
Okay.
protective, and a javelin that never misses its target.
Wow.
So very like protective, but also showering her with what he sees as fit gifts.
Right.
So that's kind of another Venusian trait of gifting people or like, showing love through material things sometimes. So another one that could be drawn together. So that's all happening over there. Back in Phoenicia, Europa's father is mad. He's like, "Where's my daughter? Come on." So he sends her 3 brothers, Cadmus, Cilix, and Phoenix, to find her and bring her home. None of them succeed. And Cadmus wanders so far off course that he actually ends up founding the city of Thebes instead. That's his side quest.
Okay.
Fun fact. Yeah.
He fucked around and founded a city.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, after Europa has her sons, they start to take over the mythology. So, we don't actually really know what happens to her. Like, does she live her days
Mm.
out? Does something happen? We don't really have stories to know. But what we do know is that Zeus places the image of the bull as the constellation in the stars to honor her, which is like really self centered.
Yeah. It's like, remember that time I kidnapped you? Let's look at it forever.
Yeah, he's like, "I was so good at that. I should I was so good at romancing you. I should honor myself," basically,
Right, right. Yeah.
which we don't love, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if a Taurus man it. Gosh. So yeah, to try to kind of connect it to the Taurus sign, as I said, they're ruled by Venus, which is the planet of beauty and pleasure and all of this. So I think the way that he like made himself beautiful and was like soft, that feels very Venusian in terms of like that classic theme that you think of
Okay,
with
yeah.
Venus. Also, I think just the fact that he's like being patient, he has a plan, he's going to be stubborn and like persistent about it
Right.
until she kind of falls into that is another thing. Like Taurus are always very intentional with like how they spend their energy and things like that. So just a fun lens. What
Fun.
do you think? Did that resonate for you?
I'm gonna be honest with you, not necessarily.
I know
I
they're
guess some of
weird.
the
They're not quite
themes.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, some of the themes, I guess.
yeah,
I get why like it kind of ties to Taurus, but I don't particularly feel like the story speaks to me in a
yeah.
deep way.
Honestly, I feel like Taurus is kind of a hard sign to pin down.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know why, because I mean, it's just like, and I've heard this metaphor of earth signs that Taurus is like the ground, Virgo is like the plants and the trees, and then Capricorn is the mountain. And so I feel like
Okay.
the ground is both porous and hard.
Mhm.
So, like, I feel like in my experience, Taurians are very open to things because of that Venusian energy of like wanting to experience things and like that kind
Right.
of stuff, but also they can be very stubborn and like dense at
Mhm.
the same time. I don't
Yeah,
know. I
that's
just feel
probably
like they have a
accurate.
dichotomy that
Yeah.
is, I haven't put my finger on it yet.
And going back to Aries, is that air? Are they an air
That's
sign?
fire.
Fire. Okay. Got it.
Hmm.
Just as we move
Yeah.
forward, I was trying to
Yeah. So that
keep
kind of
track.
heroic theme is a very
Yeah, that makes
fire
sense.
energy.
That makes sense.
But let's move into air.
Okay.
So, Gemini, the twins, all about duality. And of course, we have these twins in the story that capture that. Their names are Castor and Pollux. So, their mom is Leda, the queen of Sparta, but they have different dads. So, they're not like true twins if they
Mhm.
were born at the same time. So, what happened was
Naturally.
she's married to King Tinder, but she's also another one of Zeus's victims. So
Oh,
one night, Zeus comes to Leda, this time disguised as a swan, and has his way with her on the same night that she had happened to sleep with her husband. So
okay.
the result
It's a
is she
very
has,
I guess this came first, so maybe American Horror Story copied them, but have you watched the first season? I think it's called like The House
uh huh.
of American Horror Story,
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then yeah,
where she has twins
the
from two different
babies.
dads and like one's dad is the devil and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the other baby's normal.
So, great point. Good catch. That's so funny. Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, she ends up having an immortal son from Zeus named Pollux, and Castor is the king's son, fully mortal. They couldn't really be more different also in life. But one sidebar, in some versions of this myth, there are also sisters that are born alongside them, and they're all born from eggs, I guess, because of the swan part of it.
Okay. I
I don't know. Swans lay eggs.
feel like that
So
would only
that's
work if the mom
Helen.
was the swan, but all right.
Yeah. So that's Helen and Clytemnestra or whatever it is. Clytemnestra.
That sounds right.
I think there's a book about her, like one of those modern
Okay.
Greek retellings.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So, despite being different in nature, they're completely inseparable. They're obsessed with each other. Castor, the mortal, is a great horseman and chariot driver, and Pollux is really known for being a really good fist fighter. So, like, between the two of them, they have some pretty good skills, and they eventually become part of the Argonauts, which, if you remember, it's like this legendary band of like these Greek heroes who partner or go with Jason to retrieve the Golden Fleece um, from the
Oh.
story earlier. So a little connection point there.
Yeah, which is
Um,
like the mom's great or grandfather. So it would be his
somehow,
great
yeah.
or
Or
great grandfather.
or
Yeah.
or cousin,
Okay. Maybe.
I
Yeah.
guess.
I lost track of where we are.
We don't know.
They're
Honestly,
related
Poseidon
somehow.
has they all have so many children. Nobody
Hmm.
could ever know. So anyway, one day the twins and their cousins go and like try to herd this cattle to try to get some food. And so Ida, their cousin, is in charge of kind of dividing up the share, and he cheats them and eats his portion and then his brother also. And so Castor and Pollux are left with nothing to eat. And they're pissed. So they retaliate not only by stealing the cattle back from their cousins, then they take it a step further and go and abduct their fiancés. So obviously they've kind of escalated the situation. So naturally, the next step is to retaliate by murder. And Castor
Naturally.
ends up getting killed, and he's the mortal one, of course, by Idas.
Okay.
Pollux then kills the other cousin, Lynceus, and then Zeus comes in and backs up his son and kills Idas with a thunderbolt. Great win. Cool that your dad came in, still wrecked about his brother dying. And so he's like crying to Zeus and like begging him to make him immortal, or like to bring back his brother so that they could not be apart. And so Zeus kind of makes him a deal. He says, I can give you full immortality on Olympus alone, or you can split his immortality with Castor, the brother, and they would have to alternate having that
Mm.
immortality.
Okay.
So one day you get to live among the gods, and one day you have to be in the underworld, and you're never there together, but you're keeping him alive.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused on how him being immortal would solve his problem of his brother being dead.
I think I misread it. I think he meant like
He meant,
you
okay, the
can,
other one,
yeah,
immortal. Gotcha. Okay, okay.
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yep. Good catch. So he obviously chooses to share his immortality. And so eventually Zeus places them among the stars in the constellation Gemini, and they become the protectors of sailors. And so it's said that the stars are used for navigation, and ancient sailors believed that seeing them during a storm meant the brothers were watching over them and protecting them. So
That's nice.
I can't quite connect like if they're supposed to be one on and one off, how they're both in the sky.
Right. Maybe it's like in passing. They're just like,
Yeah. Or maybe like the
you know,
Gemini constellation in certain times of the year, like you don't see them both. I don't know.
maybe.
Who knows? So we'll have to get out our astronomy info for that. But yeah, the Gemini is the sign of the twins. So obviously that connection is very clear here. But also just like the duality of them, how they're so different, but essentially become
Mm,
one at the end of the day. And which is
right.
very like Gemini is very dual. It's one of the mutable signs. So they can flex from like one opinion to the next very quickly based on new
Mm-hmm.
information and stuff like that, or their mood or whatever. So yeah, definitely a cool one.
Interesting.
Yeah. The next two are a little bit less intense and dramatic and a little bit like bland. I feel bad for these
Uh,
particular signs because
yeah.
their characters don't actually have a personality. They're just
Oh.
animals. They're not like sentient beings, which is sad.
Hmm.
I guess they're
Animals are cool
sentient, but
though.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I
they
know
just
what you
don't
mean.
have traits that I can talk about.
Yeah.
So Cancer the crab, this is one, like I said, less dramatic. So, but let me set the stage here because maybe you know because you're like well versed in Greek mythology, but like I obviously knew that the Disney movie was not perfectly correct, but I didn't realize how much of a lie it really is until I did learn about this story. in the
So
next
I
two
don't feel
stories.
like I actually know a lot about Greek mythology.
Okay.
But what Disney one are you referencing?
Hercules.
Oh, Hercules. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Sorry, I didn't thought I said that. So
I
yeah,
might have
like
missed it. You may have said it, but okay.
Hercules, I
So
don't think I
it's
did.
you're saying it's like a lot different from like
Yeah.
the movie's a lot different from
So in the movie, Hera is Hercules' biological mom, and the reason he doesn't have
mhm.
powers is because of like the formula or whatever. But in real mythology, in real life, in mythology, she was his nemesis because he was born of one of Zeus's mistresses. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So in
Huh.
the movie, Hades is kind of the role of Hera in real mythology in terms of like
Right,
being his
right.
nemesis. Hmm.
Which I guess makes like it I can see why they changed it.
Yeah. We love a
You know what
family
I mean?
story. Yeah, I mean, they love a family unit, so I think that makes
Yeah,
more sense.
and I feel like
And the
in
mistress of it
all of
all.
the yeah, well, that's true as well, but also, like, anytime for our childhood, at least, like, any movie I can think of, if you have, like, a boy and a girl fighting, they have to become romantically involved at the end, you know
Oh,
what I mean?
naturally.
Instead
Yeah,
of yeah,
true.
so even in Hercules, they him and, whatever the
Yeah,
love
the
interest is
enemies to
have, like, a
lover trope.
little yeah, so it wouldn't really work in this scenario if they were actually enemies, just enemies, you
Exactly.
know? So
Yeah. So yeah, so this is a story of Hercules and his arch nemesis Hera. Also Heracles in the Roman tradition.
mhm,
Or is it vice versa? It's vice versa. So anyway, he's working through these famous 12 labors that he has to do, which is a series of pretty impossible tasks that are assigned to him by a king for penance for killing his own wife and children. Another story that's kind of left out of the movie. This is really like these stories happen to some degree in the movie, but they're part of the training challenges that he
mhm,
faces.
yeah.
So this is his second labor, and it is to slay the Hydra, which is that massive multi-headed serpent that we see here, that we kind of see in like Harry Potter, in terms of like the three-headed dog.
Yeah. Fluffy.
Fluffy.
Mhm.
So Hera is the one that has raised the Hydra specifically to kill him because she hates him. This is not the
Right.
only animal that she like raises to kill him. And so he gets in there. It starts off really bad because he doesn't know the part where the Hydra is just going to like reproduce two times over. And so she's jazzed. But eventually, Hercules or Heracles in this case, the nephew brings in his nephew, Iolus, to help him. So she's mad. She intervenes and she's like, okay, I'm going to bring in this giant crab from the swamp to attack Heracles from below while he's fighting the Hydra above. So the crab kind of like weasels in and he latches onto Heracles, but Heracles ends up crushing it under his foot without ever really noticing it's there. So that's the whole story for the crab. Bless his heart.
Oh, poor little
um,
crab. I
yeah.
love crabs too. They're
I
so cute.
know. Yeah, they're very cute. So the battle continues, though. Iolus ends up figuring out the Hydra problem by cauterizing each neck stump with a torch every time Heracles severs
Mhm.
its head. So, like, they're kind of
Sure.
tag teaming that. So, the wound you can't grow anything back from. Hera, she's furious that Heracles has killed the monster that she raised specifically to destroy him. And she wants to
Naturally.
honor Hydra. So she puts Hydra in the sky as a constellation. And then she kind of feels bad for the crab, throws him up there too, right next to Hydra.
So is there two like distinct constellations? Those two
There's
there's two?
two distinct constellations, but Hydra does not sit on that ecliptic line, that path of the sun. So Hydra never
Interesting.
becomes a
So who
sign.
really
It's the
won
crab
now?
that gets the glory. Yeah. So things turn
Okay.
out for the crab.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit hard too in terms of like drawing a line to
Symbolism, yeah.
Cancer. You know, they are kind of protective. So he was kind of trying to help protect
Right.
Hydra, that kind of thing. But they're also soft exteriors. So he crumbled at a little bit of pressure, which not, I don't think Cancers necessarily do. They
Okay.
can, but I don't think they always do.
Yeah.
Just in this situation, it didn't work out for it. There's also the connection to Hera here a little bit. She's the goddess of home and marriage and family, which are all
Mm.
kind of Cancer coded traits. Kind of, she really has like fierce loyalty. She can also hold fierce grudges, which is also kind of a crabby thing. So yeah,
I see it.
a loose
See it.
interpretation.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have Leo, which is, of course, the lion. And we're actually going to backpedal from the Hercules storyline to the first labor that he does. I don't know why they're in this order, I
Okay.
guess, because that's where the constellations end up falling. But
Fall. Yeah.
so there at the time, the king, who Heracles is kind of answering to in his penance, assigns him his first task, which is to go to Nemea and kill the lion that's been terrorizing the region. So we do see this as part of the zero to hero montage in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, with anything in mythology, it's not just a normal lion. The Nemean lion is enormous, monstrous in size, and it is completely impenetrable to weapons. So you can't like pierce it with a sword or a knife or an arrow or anything like that. And, legend has it that Hera also raised this lion and released it into the Nemea population. So for some reason, like Hera's side hustle is to raise monsters and set them against her enemies, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. All right, Hera.
Part of me like admires it and part of me is like, maybe get a new hobby. I don't think that's very healthy.
Not healthy, but
Holding a lot of
badass.
anger in there, girl.
Yeah,
Let it go. I mean, I would too if I was married to Zeus, to be fair.
that's
But
also true.
anyway, so back to Heracles. Hercules, instead of jumping right into attacking this lion and fighting it, he kind of spent some time stalking him, observing him, and eventually thinks he's ready. He wants to start with an arrow. The arrow bounces off. Nothing. The hide is like
Okay.
too impenetrable. So he has to pivot and think a little bit more cleverly. So the lion lives in a cave that has two mouths, like an entrance at each side.
Uh-huh.
And so Hercules blocks one entrance off completely and then obviously goes through the other side, very much like Fox and the Hound. When he's
Yes.
trying
I
to
was just
smoke the
thinking
fox
that.
out. This is also just a Disney episode, guys.
Yeah, this is a Disney podcast now, actually, if you
A
didn't know.
surprise. We just lost followers. So he goes and goes inside of the lion, corners him, wraps his arms around its neck, and is able to strangle him with his bare hands because his hands are not weapons. So it's a loophole, I
Okay.
guess. In terms of him being impenetrable, you don't have to penetrate
Right,
his
right.
hide
I
to be able to
see.
choke him.
Okay.
So obviously, part of this, he has to skin it, but he can't figure out how to do that because he can't use any weapons on it.
Right. And here's the
So
taxidermy coming around.
yeah, here's the taxidermy Athena telling him what to
Yeah.
do. So wise Athena appears and is like, why don't you use one of his claws? Like, take off one of his claws to make the cut. It
Okay.
works. Only the lion can hurt the lion, which
Okay.
also feels a little bit Leo energy.
Yeah.
They have such presence and seemingly ego, and then they can hurt their own feelings.
Okay.
They hurt their own feelings by taking something personally that they didn't need to or things like that.
Okay.
So that's my distinction there. So anyway, it works. He gets this pelt and so from then on he gets to wear that lion skin as protection. He has a hood as the
Right.
head and all of this. He goes back to the city and the king is distraught and honestly a little bit scared of Hercules. So much
Oh,
so that
wow.
he forbids him to come into the city gates again and he creates a a hideout where he digs a bronze jar into the ground and he gets in it whenever Hercules has to come home after one of his missions to get a new
Okay.
one. I think he passes a note or something to give him his next mission or
Wow,
something.
what a weird tangent.
Really
Okay.
weird detail. So, like the Hydra and the Cancer, Hera does want to honor the lion, so she puts it up, and that becomes the Leo constellation. So, yeah,
It's
that's Leo.
it's really just Hera honoring all her pets
It
in the pet
is.
cemetery up there.
We can thank her monster raising for half of the
Yeah.
sky, I guess. We'll find out about the rest of them next episode.
All right. Well, I cannot wait
Yeah.
for next week. That was fun.
Hmm. I think
Thank
the
you
other
guys
ones
for
will be
listening.
interesting. So,
Yeah. I'm thinking about everyone I know as we're going through these too, and their
hmm,
signs,
yeah,
making associations,
it's true. It's just a
which is the
fun
best
fun
part of
activity.
astrology.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. If you would like to rate the show, we would really appreciate that. You can do it on any podcast platforms or leave us a comment with anything you want to hear in the future because we're always looking for ideas. But otherwise, we will see you next week for part 2 and we'll catch you up on the rest of the astrological science.
Yes, we'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.